I stood in my closet last Tuesday, staring at a dress I hadn't worn in 12 years.
Price tag still attached, $600. That's when it hit me. I'm Margaret Sullivan. I'm 63 and 3 months ago I retired after 37 years in pharmaceutical sales. The first thing I did wasn't celebrate. It was start letting go. Because retirement isn't just about stopping work. It's about making room for what comes next. So I started selling. And with each thing I let go, I found something unexpected. Peace. Here are the 4 things I sold before retiring, and why each one gave me back a piece of myself. The first thing I sold was the house. The big, beautiful 4-bedroom home in Maplewood I bought in 1998. It was my dream house, the proof that I'd made it even as a single mom. I can still remember assembling that backyard swing set one Sunday, while the kids ate popsicles and supervised. For years, that house was alive with birthday parties, homework battles at the kitchen table, teenage footsteps thundering down the stairs at odd hours. It held every phase of my children's lives, from scraped knees to prom photos to college acceptance letters stuck to the fridge with magnets. But then they left, as they should, and suddenly I was living in 2,800 square feet of silence. I'd walk past their empty bedrooms and feel this strange ache. Not quite sadness, but not quite okay either. I kept their rooms exactly as they left them, like museums to childhoods that were over. My son's baseball trophies collecting dust, my daughter's old bulletin board still covered in concert tickets and friendship bracelets. The house became a full-time job. Gutters needed cleaning, furnace needed servicing, yard needed mowing. I spent my Saturdays maintaining a space I barely used for people who no longer lived there. One Sunday, my daughter visited with her fiancé. We sat in the living room, just the 3 of us, in a room that could hold 20 people. She looked around and said, "Mom, when's the last time you actually used the dining room?" I couldn't remember. That question stayed with me for weeks, and slowly I started to see the house differently, not as my achievement, but as my anchor, keeping me tied to a version of life that didn't exist anymore. So I listed it. The hardest part wasn't the paperwork or the showings. It was admitting that the dream I'd worked so hard for had changed shape. I didn't need 4 bedrooms anymore. I needed a place that fit the life I was actually living, not the one I was preserving. I sold it last October and moved into a 2-bedroom condo downtown. 1,200 square feet, 1 floor, a view of the river. And you know what? I don't miss a single square foot of that old house. What I gained was freedom, freedom from maintenance, from memories that had started to feel more like obligations, from the weight of preserving something that was already gone. Now when my kids visit, we sit on my small balcony with coffee and actually talk. We're not lost in the echo of a house too big for the 3 of us. We're just together, and that's all I ever really wanted. But the house wasn't the only thing weighing me down. My basement looked like a retail store that never opened. Boxes labeled Christmas 2003, a treadmill I used twice, 14 boxes of my kids' school papers and art projects, a bread maker, a juicer, a set of china my mother gave me that I never once used because it was too nice for every day. I am, or I was, a keeper of things. I told myself I was being practical, responsible, that you never know when you might need these things. But the truth is, I was holding on to them because letting go felt like losing, like admitting I'd wasted money, or that I'd failed at being the person who would use a bread maker, or display fancy china, or scrapbook, every school project. The breaking point came when I couldn't find my winter boots. I spent 40 minutes searching through boxes surrounded by things I didn't need, unable to find the one thing I actually wanted. I sat down on a box labeled VHS tapes and started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. This was ridiculous. So I hired Rebecca, an organizer who didn't judge me when she saw the chaos. She asked me one question about every single item. Does this serve the life you're building or the life you used to have? Most of my things served a life I used to have. We spent 3 weekends sorting everything. I sold what had value, donated what didn't, threw away what was broken. I kept one box of my kids' art, the pieces that still made me smile. I kept photos, but not 14 boxes worth. I kept my mother's china, but only the pieces I'd actually use. The rest, gone. And here's what nobody tells you about letting go of stuff. You don't miss it, not even a little bit. What I gained was space. Physical space in my new condo, yes, but also mental space. I wasn't constantly thinking about organizing the basement or sorting through boxes someday. I wasn't carrying the guilt of unused purchases or the weight of things I was preserving for a future that would never come. Now everything I own fits into my life. I can find my boots, I can breathe in my closet, and when I want to bake bread, I buy it from the bakery down the street and eat it warm, without the guilt of an unused machine gathering dust somewhere. Turns out I didn't need stuff just in case. I needed space just because. It wasn't just physical things I needed to let go of, though. For 15 years, I played the stock market like it was my second job. I've never been a gambler, but somehow I got caught up in it. It started innocently enough. A colleague told me about a tech stock that was going to explode. I bought a few shares. They doubled. I felt like a genius. So I bought more. Different companies, different sectors. I read financial news every morning. I checked my portfolio multiple times a day. I had alerts set on my phone for market changes. When things went up, I felt invincible. When things went down, I felt sick. There were nights I'd lie awake calculating. If this stock drops another 10%, should I sell? If I hold, what if it drops 20%? What if I miss the recovery? My daughter once asked me why I looked so tired. I told her I was fine, but the truth was I wasn't sleeping. I was worrying about numbers on a screen that went up and down based on forces I couldn't control. The final straw came last spring when the market had a particularly volatile week. I watched $18,000 disappear in 3 days, then come back, then disappear again. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at red numbers on my laptop, and I realized I hate this. I wasn't building wealth, I was building anxiety. So I made a decision. I sold everything except my retirement accounts and a few stable index funds. I took the money and put it into bonds, CDs, and a high-yield savings account. Boring, predictable, safe. My financial advisor looked at me like I was crazy. "You're leaving money on the table," he said. Maybe I was, but I was also leaving sleepless nights on the table, and panic on the table, and the constant mental calculation of what if. Here's what I gained: peace of mind. My money now grows slowly and steadily. I don't check it every day. I don't wake up in the middle of the night wondering if tomorrow's news will tank my portfolio. I know, within a reasonable margin, what I have and what I'll have. And that certainty is worth more to me than any potential windfall, because at 63 I don't want to spend my retirement glued to market reports. I want to spend it living. And I can't live if I'm constantly worried about losing what I have. Some people thrive on high-risk investing. That's fine for them. But I've learned that there's no shame in choosing peace over profit. My anxiety isn't worth another 3% return. Now, when I see market volatility in the news, I feel nothing. No panic, no regret, just relief that it's no longer my problem. That's the kind of wealth no stock could ever give me. And then there was the hardest thing to sell, or rather, to let go of. This one wasn't about a physical object. It was about selling the version of myself that said yes to everything. For years, I was the person people called when they needed something. PTA meetings, charity committees, book clubs I didn't enjoy, dinners with friends who'd become more obligation than friendship. I said yes because I thought that's what good people did, what reliable people did. And after my divorce, I especially wanted to prove I was doing fine, that I was social, involved, thriving. But I wasn't thriving, I was performing. There was this woman, let's call her Patricia, who I'd been friends with since our kids were in elementary school. We met for lunch once a month, every single month for 18 years. But somewhere around year 10, our conversations became repetitive. She'd complain about the same things. I'd give the same advice. Neither of us seemed to enjoy it anymore, but neither of us knew how to stop. After I announced my retirement, Patricia immediately suggested we start meeting twice a month. "You'll have so much free time," she said, and something in me just snapped. I didn't want more time with Patricia. I wanted more time with myself, with my daughter, with the pottery class I'd been thinking about for 5 years, but never had time for. So I told her the truth, gently but honestly. I said that I was restructuring my life, and that our monthly lunches had started to feel more like duty than joy. I thanked her for years of friendship, but I needed to step back. She was hurt. I expected that. But I also expected to feel guilty. Instead, I felt light. I did the same with the charity committee I'd been on for 12 years, with the book club that read books I didn't care about, with the neighborhood association that held meetings I dreaded. I resigned from all of it, and I braced myself for the fallout, for people to think I was selfish or lazy or ungrateful. But here's what actually happened. Most people just said, okay. Some even said they understood. A few said they wished they had the courage to do the same. What I gained was time, not just hours on my calendar, but emotional energy. I wasn't spending my days doing things I didn't want to do with people I no longer connected with. Now my social life is small, but it's real. I see my daughter twice a week. We cook together or walk in the park or just sit and talk. I reconnected with an old college friend who lives 2 hours away. We talk on the phone every Sunday morning for an hour. I joined that pottery class. My calendar isn't full anymore, but my life finally feels like mine. And that's the thing nobody tells you about retirement. It's not about having more time. It's about choosing what you do with the time you have. And sometimes choosing means saying no to things and people that no longer serve the life you're trying to build. 3 months into retirement, I'm living in a smaller home with fewer things, less financial stress, and a much quieter social calendar. On paper, I have less, but I've never felt richer, because what I gained, what I truly gained, was the freedom to build a life that actually fits me. Not the me I was at 40 or the me I thought I should be, but the me I am now, at 63, with all my scars and wisdom and quiet joys. Retirement isn't an ending, it's a rewrite. And to write a new story, you have to be willing to let go of the old one, even the parts you worked so hard to build. So if you're approaching retirement or already there, I'll leave you with this. Look around your life, really look, and ask yourself what you're holding on to that you no longer need. what's weighing you down instead of lifting you up. Then give yourself permission to let it go. Because the best thing I sold before retiring wasn't my house, or my stuff, or my investments, or my obligations. It was the belief that I had to keep carrying things that no longer served me.
And in return, I got something I'd been searching for my whole life: peace.